All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. June 13th. Happy Tuesday to everyone out there. We got a full MLB slate to jump into today. Like we always do, we're going to talk about each and every game. We'll go through them. I'll give you my lean or leans on the games, but always keep an eye on the pinned comment for my final plays. I update that throughout the day and always by game time, So keep an eye on that. In terms of yesterday, it's a head-shaking day. In fact, it's a womp womp. 1 and 2 night. Ty Anderson our only hit over 1.5 walks. That's great. But the Rangers and the Phillies both blew like 5-1, 5-2 leads. So what coulda, shoulda, woulda been? Oh, this is a tough one. It could have been a 3-0 sweep, but I know sports betting is all about the should have been, could have been, that type of thing. But man, does it stink to see two teams that look like they're going to hit and complete a sweep for you just go ass over tea kettle and end up losing. So yeah, 1 and 2 night. We do look to bounce back today. I think that we will. I can't get that mad about a 1 and 2 night, but again, what coulda, shoulda, woulda been is tough. It's a tough little pill to swallow there. But before we get into today's games, I do want to talk to you guys about another tool that I incorporate into my research every single day. This one is more for prize picks plays, no house advantage plays, jock market plays, thrive fantasy plays, all those DFS player prop sites. It is the DGF Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer, guys. In fact, I'll just jump in and start showing you guys what it is you can go through and look at all the apps that it's incorporated with up here. It looks at all the plays on those apps, or I should say squares on those apps that are available, and compares them to both the sportsbook line as well as the sportsbook's odds. And if you know anything about sports betting, the higher the negative number means the sportsbook is juicing that side, and they think that that is the most likely outcome. So what it does is it averages all of the sportsbook's lines and lets you, or odds I should say, and lets you know where sportsbooks make out in here. So you could sort this by average odds and see, okay, Bo Bichette over 1.5 total bases today. Most sportsbooks have this in the mid 130s, some in the minus 140s here. This could be a good play to throw on prize picks because it has that value, and sportsbooks usually do have a little bit more insight, or at least are pretty damn good at putting odds to a pick. So make sure to check that out, guys. You can use the link in the description or in the pinned comment. If you've been following me on TikTok or on Instagram for a while now, you might even be signed up already because I've been using this for damn near a year. So make sure to go check out the DGF Optimizer, guys. There's a lot of other cool things on that site on Daily Grind Fantasy as well, but I just use predominantly the optimizer there. So make sure to go check that out. Let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 here. We're looking at the Detroit Tigers taking on the Atlanta Braves. Detroit getting the win yesterday. We can blow right through this game. I think that this is an Atlanta spot. Spencer Strider is on the mound for them. Now they're minus 250 on the money line, so maybe it's a parlay throw-in, but I don't hate Atlanta minus 1.5 on the run line. Still a little bit of a juice to be paid there at minus 142, but I have a feeling this is just a bounce back spot for them. If they don't, they'd lose 2 to Detroit and 3 in a row, and I cannot see that happening. So I lean towards the Atlanta side of things. And then in terms of the total, we're sitting at 8 runs right now. I've seen 8.5 on some sports books, but most notable sports books are at 8. But either way, I do still lean towards the under. I think Spencer Strider is going to go out there and absolutely deal today, and it's going to be a one-sided affair. Next up, we have the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Orioles coming off of a series sweep against the Royals, and Toronto coming off a nice win against Minnesota, but still lost the series 2-1 there. In terms of odds, we don't have it on the screen, but Baltimore plus 115 at home. Total is sitting at 8.5 runs. Kramer on the mound for the Orioles, 6-3 with a 4.89 ERA, and then Bassett on the mound for the Toronto Blue Jays. He is 7-4 with a 3.29 ERA. We're looking at a Kramer that has actually pitched decently against the Blue Jays this season. Earlier in May, he had 5 1/3 pitch with 1 earned run. The whip was a little bit high at 2, which is not a little bit high, pretty high, but also 7 strikeouts. Bassett hasn't had the best of games against Baltimore, but nothing to note in the last couple of years, so no need to really dive into that. He has been kind of erratic. Both these guys have been up and down. Bassett up more than Kramer has been, but nonetheless, I think the pitching matchup's actually fairly similar today. You can call me crazy, so I'm going to lean towards the underdog here at home, the Baltimore Orioles plus 115 over on DraftKings. Then in terms of a total 8.5 runs, I kind of like the under. I think both these guys, yes, while they're erratic pitchers, they actually match up fairly well against these two teams. So I do think that this is going to be a good spot. Now, again, when I say erratic, Bassett's less erratic than Kramer. Bassett's had a couple bad starts this year as well, but he is coming off of 2 good starts. So if you're on the Toronto side and you're like, Evan, you're crazy, Bassett's actually looking good, fine, guys. Go ahead. I'm not trying to talk you off of the Blue Jays. I just think this is an Orioles spot. All right, Mets hosting the Yankees here. Mets are favored at -150 at home, meaning Scherzer's on the mound if you don't even need to look at who's starting. And then in terms of a total, we're at 7.5 runs. Luis Severino's on the mound for the Yankees. He's 0-1 with a 5.74 ERA. Last two starts have kind of killed him. He came in, I think his first start was good, 6 1/3 or something like that, with a low whip, 5 Ks and 1 earned run. I believe that was first start of the season. But Scherzer has, put together a couple decent starts, and then all of a sudden, last start, the wheels kind of fall off. In his last start here, going up against Atlanta, he goes 5 2/3, 5 earned runs, a near 2 whip, 10 strikeouts, but nonetheless, the team gets the loss in that one. He did not get the loss. Actually, I remember watching that game. They were up when he came out, and Atlanta came back late in the game. But nonetheless, in terms of who we're leaning towards in this game, it might be crazy, but this is such a game where, when you have a rivalry and stuff like this, where it's like team trends don't always matter, in my opinion. So I'm going to lean towards the Mets here at home, even though it's a lot of juice. I think it's worthy of the psycho alert alarm because it is kind of crazy. I'm backing Scherzer, who's the better pitcher, obviously, but this Mets team, based on how they've been trending and how the Yankees have been trending, don't deserve to be -150. Actually, you can get them at -145 on BetMGM right now. But I still think that, again, when you have these rivalry series, look at the Red Sox-Yankees last series, right? You look at that and it's like, okay, the Yankees were playing better baseball and were a better team. Red Sox took 2 of 3 against them. You know what I mean? They beat Garrett Cole. Like, it's more about the rivalry, and it kind of level sets where these two teams are because it means more than what's been going on around them. So maybe, like I said, I sounded the psycho alert. Maybe I'm a psycho for this pick, but I lean towards the Mets here at home. And then I'm looking at the total of 7.5 runs. Yes, 2 good pitchers on the mound, but 7.5 seems just a little bit too low for 2 offenses that have been slightly dormant. The Mets had 2 big games, like a week ago or so, but other than that, kind of have been, a 1 to 4 run type team. And the Yankees, for as good as they are now, I know we're dealing with a bunch of injuries there, mainly Aaron Judge. Their offense has been slow as well, but I feel like everyone comes out of their shell a little bit today and gets up for this game. All right, Red Sox taking on the Rockies here. Yesterday, Rockies ended up pulling out the win. It was a close game for a while, but ultimately, it stayed a close game, but ultimately the Rockies ended up winning 4-1. James Paxton actually looked pretty good. I think he finished with like 8 strikeouts, good for him. Good to see that getting back there. Carter Crawford on the mound for the Sox today. Rockies are starting Chase Anderson, who's yet to get a win or a loss. He's ERA is a 2.25 here. He's been pitching deep in the game, so it's kind of funny to see a guy that does pitch, 5 1/3 to 6 innings, not have any results for the year. But Cutter Crawford, like I said, 1-3. He really has not been going in games deep. Last 2 games here, he's been hit around, not even hit around, but they're pulling him early. Obviously, 3 innings pitched in both of those. Tough matchups though. Tampa Bay and Cleveland. So the team gets 2 losses in that. He only gets 1 loss out of it overall. I do think this is a good bounce back spot for the Red Sox here today. But the odds just aren't there. The fact that they got beat last night, and then now I'm looking at the Red Sox at -230. I have to kind of not pay attention to this game. The only thing that I do like is going to be the under 9.5 runs. We're not in Colorado. We don't have the altitude to worry about, and neither one of these offenses have shown out in their last, month of baseball, or I should say like 2 weeks of baseball. But you know what I mean? Like there's this over is a little bit too high here to even consider. So I'm going to lean towards the under at 9.5. I think both these pitchers are capable of letting up some deep balls, but I don't think that's going to happen the way that these two teams have been batting. So I stick away from either side of this game because I don't like the odds altogether, but I do like the under 9.5. All right, Minnesota taking on Milwaukee. Minnesota coming off winning 2 of 3 against Toronto, but they did lose that last game. And you have the Brewers. The Brewers getting swept by the Oakland Athletics here. And Minnesota only -112 here on the money line at home. And something's making me go, why? Why? Pablo Lopez on the mound, definitely a decent pitcher. 3-3 with a 4.25 ERA. Corbin Burns on the mound for the Brewers, pretty good pitcher. 5-4 with a 3.36 ERA. But why is Minnesota only -115 when, in my opinion, they've just been playing better baseball than the Brewers as of late? When I say as of late, like they won 2 of the last 3, and Milwaukee got swept in the last 3. If you look back 2 weeks, Milwaukee was playing better baseball, but they have been on the decline. So is Minnesota, but I think Minnesota has a little bit tougher of a schedule there, looking at Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and then Toronto. Toronto versus Milwaukee's last few series of Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Oakland. So something line reading here feels like this should be a minus 130-ish spot for Minnesota. I'm still going to lean in their direction. It's really good value, but it almost tells me maybe the bookmakers know something that we don't. And then in terms of a total 7.5 runs, I want to take the over in this one, right? I want to take the over on it, but I just don't trust either of these offenses right now. So even though it's super, super low, I do lean towards the under, which is kind of crazy. All right, Cardinals, Giants. Giants get the win yesterday like I had predicted. Didn't make it a final play, though that could have been helpful. Cardinals are starting Jack Flaherty today, 3-4 with a 4.15 ERA. Cobb on the mound for the Giants, 5-2 with a 3.01 ERA. Alex Cobb coming off of a rough start, but 2 starts ago he had a fantastic start against Baltimore. But last start against Colorado, 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, and near 2 whip with 7 Ks. Jack Flaherty coming off a really nice performance. 8 strikeouts through 6 innings with 0 earned runs against Texas. That's a damn tough team to keep down as well. Note that they had been beat in games 1 and 2 of that series, and Jack Flaherty was able to come in and shut them up and get that last win there. But that being said, I still do think that this is a favorable matchup for San Francisco, and you have some decent odds over at minus 105 on DraftKings. So I am going to lean towards the Giants. I know Jack Flaherty, he's coming off a really good start, but nonetheless, he's been kind of up and down this year. Obviously starting pretty well, but then he's put together a few bad starts in a row. Kind of got it on, I shouldn't even say bad starts. Got put together a couple games in which, he starts well, the team doesn't pitch. I don't want to give him too much flack because I do think that he's been a good pitcher, but I'm going to kind of trust Cobb can keep this Cardinals team down here. And in terms of a total 8.5 runs, I slightly lean towards the over. Yesterday was a 4-3 game. I think if both these teams are well capable of getting one more run, so I'm going to lean in that direction as well. All right, guys, and it is Tuesday, so that means you should keep an eye on the Prize Picks Taco Tuesday. If you don't know what that is, you live under an absolute rock. Prize Picks every single Tuesday discounts a player's projections. You guys can go capitalize on that. For example, if it's, I guess we'll use the example that was on the optimizer earlier. Bo Bichette, 1.5 total bases, right? They might knock it down to 0.5 total bases. A lot of the times they're doing it on pitchers, but nonetheless, still value to be capitalizing on. And I know that I like to talk about, especially on TikTok and Instagram, a bunch of different apps like this. Most notably, one of my favorites, Jock Market, as well as No House Advantage and Thrive, and now Prize Picks. Guys, it's all about where the value is. They all have different lines and plays that are being offered. And when you have a Taco Tuesday like Prize Picks offers, it is well worth taking the shot. I know there's a lot of taco conspiracy theorists out there saying, Prize Picks tries to bait people into the taco so they don't hit. But if you actually look at the record, these taco plays hit all the time. So if you're not signed up for Prize Picks yet, you can get 100% of your first deposit matched with the link in the description. I'll put it in the pinned comment as well, and you'll be able to take advantage of whatever the taco play is today. They've been throwing like 2 to 3 tacos out per week for the last few weeks as well, so definitely a lot of value over there. All you have to do is pair it with 1 other player prop, or 4 other player props, 5 other player props if you want to take a big shot here, and then for your chance to win. So make sure to check that out, guys. Use that link in the description as well as the pinned comment. Let's get back to the games that we're looking at here. All right, we got the Cubs taking on the Pirates here. Cubs coming off of taking 2 of 3 against San Francisco, and Pittsburgh coming off of taking 2 of 3 against the Mets. You have 2 teams that won series, but Pirates have been playing good baseball. They've won 7 of their last 10 games here. They have Luis Ortiz on the mound going up against Jameson Taillon. I think I'm going to lean towards the Pirates. I don't love this spot for them. If anything, in this game, I am going to take a peek at the under. I do think that this is a good spot. Both of these offenses have kind of cooled off, barring a 14-run spot by Pittsburgh. But if you look outside of that in the last 8 games or so, really not the best offensive performances from them. And then obviously we know this Cubs team has been scoring, 2, 1, 3, 4, 3 runs in the last 5 games or so. So I do like the under. 2 serviceable pitchers on the mound. Like I said, I lean towards the Pirates on the money line, but don't really love that. I could totally see the Cubs that I've bet a bunch coming through and winning this game. I really do like the under more than anything in this game. All right, Texas taking on the Angels, one of our losses from yesterday. I really do feel like we got screwed here, but it ends up going to extra innings and the Angels pull it through. Texas has not announced their pitcher yet. Berea on the mound for the Angels, 2-1 with a 1.85 ERA. But I'm kind of looking at this from an offensive output perspective from Texas. So I am still going to lean Texas, not knowing who they're pitching. If they end up throwing a Joe Schmo out there, I don't necessarily know who's due up or the situation. But if they throw something that's obviously terrible out there, we won't pull the trigger. But I still think this is a good Texas bounce back spot. So I'm going to lean towards them. And then in terms of a total 9.5 runs, yesterday's game was high, 9-6. It went to extra innings though. I know this Texas team's good. I know they have the bats, but I'm going to lean towards the under. All right, Reds catch the 5-4 win over the Kansas City Royals yesterday. In terms of what we're looking at, did I pronounce that correctly? In terms of what we're looking at today, we do have the Royals as favorites again, slight favorites here, but you do have even odds over on FanDuel if you are on Cincinnati's side of things. Lyles on the mound for the Royals, Mr. L himself. You can't spell Lyles without a capital L. 0-10 with a 6.6 ERA. How's this guy still in the major leagues? Oh, it's because everyone else stinks on that team. The Reds have Brandon Williamson going out. No decisions yet with a 5.4 ERA. I think the value's on the Reds type of thing, but just like yesterday, it is going to be one of those chalk plays where everyone and their grandmothers on the Reds. It worked out yesterday, but nonetheless, I do still think that could be a stay away spot, because I know I always say, like, if the Royals are favored over someone, especially with Lyles on the mound, I'm going to bet the other side, or at least lean the other side. But at some point, that's not going to work out. So this isn't like it's a good team like the Rays underdogs against Kansas City. It's still the Reds, who looking good. They're a good young team, but with some veterans on the team, obviously. But I don't know how sustainable it necessarily is. But today I still do lean the Reds. Just be weary. It's not like this is a team that's going to dominate Kansas City in any fashion. In fact, Kansas City almost looked like they were going to win that game at points yesterday. Then in terms of the total 9.5 runs, I think this one actually goes up and over. This Reds offense is looking good, and Kansas City has been letting up a bunch of runs as of late, and they got capital L on the mound as well. So I'm going to lean towards the over. All right, Astros taking on Washington here. Washington coming off of winning one game against Atlanta, losing that series. Houston also only winning one game against Cleveland. They're huge favorites in this one, and I can see why. They're home now against the Nationals. I do think this is a good spot for them to get the win, but at minus 260 odds, minus 250 odds, not going to be entertained by that. I do kind of like them on the run line. So we might throw that as in a final play, but what I do like in this game is going to be the under 8.5 here. I think this is a really good spot for it. I think the majority of the public is going to be on the over, and we're going to see some money in on the under if things are trending in the right direction using the Outlier app, which we'll probably talk about in just a little bit. But nonetheless, guys, I do think that this is a decent spot for the under. I do like the Houston side of things, but you're paying juice either way, whether it's run line or the money line. Obviously, run line's a little bit better, but nonetheless, I think that they do come back and bounce back after, they've only won, I think it's 3 of their last 9 games or something like that. Yikes. All right, Diamondbacks, who came back and took the dub against the Phillies yesterday. They've now won 4 straight games, 8 of their last 10, and I'm mad at the Phillies, man. I'm mad at the Phillies, so I'm leaning towards the Diamondbacks for some plus money here. Zach Davies on the mound. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Phillies. It's a battle of the Zachs. Do you spell it with an H? Do you spell it with a K? Because the pitcher for the Diamondbacks spells it Z-A-C-H, and the pitcher for the Phillies spells it Z-A-C-K. So that's what it's boggled down to in this crazy brain of mine. And speaking of crazy, guys, if you're still watching, go ahead and drop 17 in the comments. If you can make it through the battle of the Zacks, it's a K or an H comment, and you're still here and don't think I'm an absolute loser, go ahead and drop 17 in the comments if you are still watching, because we're just about 17 minutes into the video. And as I keep rambling, it's almost 18, but I'm going to lean towards the Diamondbacks in this one. And then in terms of the total, 9 runs, I do think this one goes up and over. Yesterday's score, again, 9-8. Phillies coming off a 7-3 game against the Dodgers, and Arizona coming off a 7-5 game against the Tigers here. So there's a little bit of a trend going up right now with runs scored and runs against. So I'm going to lean towards the over, as well as the Diamondbacks, because they're going to get revenge for me today. And I guess by revenge, I mean they made me lose yesterday, so now I'm switching sides and backing them, and I'm mad at the Phillies, so they're going to get revenge. Okay, the Oakland A's taking on Tampa Bay. We don't have lines out just yet. We do have a total now at 8.5, but yesterday's game, Oakland wins yet another one. They win this one 4-3. They've now won 6 straight games, and it's like the competition has kind of been there. Pittsburgh, an ant team, they beat. Milwaukee, an ant team, they beat. And those are, decent wins too. 11-2, 9-5, 5-2, 8-6, that type of thing. They're playing decent baseball here, so I don't think that I'm going to lean Oakland here, but depending on where that line comes out, it could make me stay completely away from Tampa Bay, which is sometimes half the battle in winning, right? It's like, if you can identify an iffy spot, if you avoid the game and avoid a loss, that's kind of like a win in of itself. I know that's kind of like cop-out talk, but nonetheless, I don't know if I can just say even Tampa Bay is a good parlay piece against Oakland, because Oakland beat them yesterday, and Jalen Beeks on the mound for the Rays. I don't really love him. I'm not really a fan of just like openers in general, and he only pitches like I said, he opens 1 to 2 innings. But nonetheless, guys, This Oakland team is kind of crazy. Total is at 8.5. I think this one does end up going over because I think at least Tampa Bay's offense comes to play today, but that does not mean that Oakland's offense sits at home and waits. All right, guys, we got Seattle taking on Miami, and if we look over on Outlier, you can see this, guys. It looks like a lot of the money is over on the Mariners side of things, the Seattle side of things, whereas it's 50-50 split in terms of bets. So just using this, I am going to follow the money. I am going to lean towards the Seattle Mariners, and this one at -145 over on DraftKings. By the way, we are using Outlier. Talk about this in plenty of videos, guys. It is an awesome app for both game picks with all of this easily consumable information. Then you can also look at all of their player props they offer. Every single player prop, if it's offered on FanDuel, on Caesars, on BetMGM, or on DraftKings, all of those player props get dumped right into this screen. Internet's not agreeing with me this morning. If you saw my community post, I've had some technical difficulties, but look at this, guys. You can see all the plays that look pretty good. For example, Austin Hayes, over 0.5 strikeouts, -165. He's hit it in all of his last 5 games, all of his last 10, 85 his last 20. We could go in and kind of deep dive and check this out even more. We could look at it on the season, and we just hit it in 74% of games. Interesting here, and we can also look at how he goes up against right-handed pitchers. So Austin Hayes right here versus righties. He bats righties even worse than he does, on the season here. And against Chris Bassett, he does have a good record. Maybe that keeps us off a 33% K rate against Chris Bassett. This could be a player prop that we throw in today, guys. I'm going to add it to my picks just so I don't forget about it. But yeah, guys, the Outlier app is awesome. I know I showed a couple research tools in today's video, and I mean it, guys. Like, I'm not just pushing these things. These are legitimate things that I use. And sometimes, you have to use these sort of research tools to make it easy and to be able to go through and make it really just efficient when you're researching plays. Like, yes, you could probably find all of this information individually through the Googles, but this makes it super, super easy. If you do want to check out Outlier, I have a link for it in the pinned comment as well as the description. By far a goated app, guys, for both the desktop as well as a mobile device. So make sure to go check out Outlier, guys. 7-day free trial in the description as well as the pinned comment. So like I said, we are going to be looking at the Mariners in this game. In terms of the total, though, I get a little lost in this one. I want to go ahead and take the over, but if you flash back and rewind in that Outlier, 98% of the money is on the under. So I'm going to kind of align with that too. I'm leaning Mariners and the under in this game, trusting that all the true sharps out there know what they're betting on. All right, Cleveland taking on San Diego. Cleveland looking pretty good as of late. They took 2 of 4 against Minnesota, the latter 2 though. Then they take 2 of 3 against Boston and 2 of 3 against Houston. San Diego also not playing all that bad of baseball. I don't really love their, I guess I would say their sort of competition and strength of schedule as of late. But nonetheless, both teams playing decent baseball here. I'm going to start on the side of the total. We see 7.5. Now, you're probably thinking, oh my God, we got to go right over that, right? We have Musgrove on the mound for the Padres and Tanner Beebe on the mound for the Guardians. And the way that these two guys have been pitching, I do think would indicate some sort of an under lean for me, even though it's 7.5. Musgrove has only let up 2 runs in his last 3 starts combined, and his whip is an average of under 1, at like 0.98, but nonetheless under 1. And then we're looking at a Tanner Beebe here who's also, pitching pretty well deep into games. He's had 1 start in his last 3, but other than that, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 9 Ks, 0.5 whip a few games back. Then against Boston, 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 1 whip with 2 Ks and the win. I do think both these pitchers are dealing, so my play in this game is going to be the under. And yeah, it might be a little crazy because it is super low at 7.5, and we've seen both these offenses definitely step up to the plate as of late. So is it a tough one to pull the trigger on? Yes, it is. But is it a smart one to pull the trigger on? I truly believe it is. In terms of a side, I guess I lean Cleveland just because they're plus 145, so it's kind of an underdog long shot. I think these teams are fairly similar. I think it's going to be a good series, so I lean towards Cleveland plus 145 just because of the money. All right, the Dodgers taking on the White Sox here. Tony Gonsolin on the mound for the Dodgers, 3-1 with a 2.21 ERA. Lance Lynn on the mound for the White Sox. You can't spell Lance Lynn without 2 L's, even though he has been pitching better. I got to give credit where it's due, or he was pitching better. I think his last start, I don't remember what it was, but it was against the Yankees. I think he blew up a little bit, but nonetheless, I'm looking at the Dodgers side of things. Obviously, the only problem is how much they are juiced here, but there is a little discrepancy. Minus 215 on DraftKings on the money line, but you can get them at near even odds on Caesars for minus 1.5. So I think if I do pull the trigger on this, it's going to be a run line play. Then in terms of the total, 9 right now, I like the under here. I don't think this White Sox team is going to necessarily come to play today. They lost 2 straight against Miami. Their offense has been all over the place, and LA's coming off a loss in which I know they wish they could turn around. They lost 2 of the 3 games against the Phillies as well, so they got to bounce back here, and I think this is a good spot to do so for them. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. All right, keep an eye on the pinned comment. Peace out.